Hello, everybody. We're going to be working on Unit 14 tonight, which is the second of the AI project units. This one focuses on natural language processing, and I'm going to start flipping through some of these slides here. Um, the overall agenda for tonight is what you're seeing on the screen right now. So we're going to review what NLP is, um, why we use no code tools for working on it, and we're going to work with some pretty neat ones tonight, and then how to actually use it to create something. I played with the project a little bit earlier today, got it to work without too much hassle, and then I was like, huh, that's pretty impressive, that's pretty neat. um, and then it really gave me a lot of ideas for other things I could do with it, especially when I started digging into all the little tools that were attached um, to the no code tool, which I thought was some of it was pretty impressive, actually. All right. So I know we talked about a lot of this stuff earlier in the course, but we're going to kind of revisit some of the basic concepts, and then we're going to see how we apply it to projects and then kind of roll from there. Um, and let's start with kind of this whole concept of natural language processing. It really is the NLP part of AI that probably has had the biggest revolution in the last few years, and what is really driving the generative AI boom, I'll call it. Um, and because we have this ideation in our head, and it comes from science fiction, right? And I'll give you an example. Like I always like use the TV show Star Trek as an example of how we use a vision that we create to create a reality. In that TV show, they came up with so many imaginary technologies that then later became realities. And I don't know how many of you watched that TV show. Yes, it's antiquated, but in the very first original series, one of the more notable technological pieces where they're on this spaceship, right? And then they go down to a planet, and they need to talk to the ship, so they don't have walkie talkies. They had this little thing, and they would flip it open, and they go, Kirk to Enterprise, you know, and not 20, 30 years later, we have flip phones that do the same thing, husband to wife, help, or whatever, you know. The other innovation, and there's many of them in that TV show. If you look at that science fiction or any science fiction, really, the other real big one was in the next generation. They developed touchscreen computers, right? Because in the first series, they got people made fun of it because they had like switches and lights, on their control panels, and like steering wheel or whatever. And they're like, that's not how you would operate a spaceship. You wouldn't even have buttons. You'd have like a touch screen or something, or you would just talk to the computer. And so they invented that technology in those science fiction shows. And so here you have like Lieutenant Commander Data, a robot working a touchscreen interface. And then now here we are in the future. We carry a touchscreen device in our pocket everywhere we go. And a lot of our computers are touchscreen, right? Yeah, I mean, so we imagine it and then we create it. It's kind of the thing. The natural language processing was part of that science fiction vision too, right? In those TV shows and movies of the era, they show scenes where the person operating the spaceship is like, computer, calculate the trajectory to the nearest star system. How far is it? How long will it take to get there? Okay, engage, and off you go, right? And we're not quite there yet, but if you have like a smart car that has its own navigation capabilities, that technology is already here. It's just not fully street legal everywhere yet. They don't trust it, but the capabilities are there. And natural language processing is the thing we're talking about, where we can interface with a machine by just talking to it or feeding it some words. All right, so kind of a big buildup there, but it is one of the biggest aspects of AI because it is the most human aspect of us, is to be able to communicate verbally, and then having computers being able to understand that. So it says computers and machines are great while working with tabular data or spreadsheets. Yeah, right. Because that's what they were built to do. They were built to crunch numbers. That's why we call them computers, right? Because they were built to compute and do mathematical equations. Um, People, however, use words to communicate, and not all the words are really clear, right? Even maybe the words I'm speaking right now with you, you're like, well, what did he say? You might forget it like 3 seconds later, right? Which is helpful for me to record it. One of the good aspects of that. Um, and computers are built to crunch numbers in a binary format, and getting them to go from that to understanding language is a really big leap. It's a really big technological process that we have gotten to that point. But we've been working on this problem for a long, long time. The concepts have been around ever since computing electronically has been around. And people have been working on artificial intelligence problems for all that time, including how to process language. And one of the first aspects of it was doing OCR, or optical character recognition, from like a printed document and turning it into text on a computer screen. And then later on, I'd say by the early 90s, we had software that was capable of listening to a human voice and correctly converting it into text. And folks, that's like 30 years ago already, right? So now we're teaching it to go to the next level, right? All right, so let's click forward here. Right, so definition wise, NLP enables computers to communicate with humans in their native language while also automating other language related tasks, right? NLP enables computers to read text, hear speech, interpret it, measure sentiment, like meaning and emotion, determine which parts are significant. Like you guys listening to me talk, it's like, is that important or not important? And if your teacher says, listen to this is important, it's important. The AI knows it too. Now I'm going to do something very interesting here, and I don't normally turn this on during class because I don't like AI listening to me, but there's this tool here called the AI Companion, and I'm turning it on, so it's running right now, and I'm going to say, and I know you guys probably can't see this, but I'm going to move the screen over, and right now it's running, and I can have my AI Companion basically keep track of my session here, record what we're doing because I can control the recording. And then it can also summarize what we talked about during the meeting and send it to me in an email as text, telling me what was important in the meeting that we just had. Right. And that's really all scary stuff. But here, this is a tool that you guys, I think, can turn on in your own environments if you wish. So feel free to play with it. But I'm going to say, can you write me a summary of this session when it is complete? Let's see what it says. And I don't know if you guys can see this on your screen or not, right? Okay. You see the response it's giving, and basically what I was telling you. So I'm gonna let that run in the background. So that's turned on and running. And whenever you're here at Gateway taking your class, that is a tool that you can turn on for yourself, by the way, along with automatic closed captioning. That's all natural language processing, folks, by the way, that it's doing. All right. Let's move on to the next slide here. All right. We think of this as a subfield of computer science and AI, right, that deals with interactions between computers and humans. It's crucial when applying machine learning or deep learning algorithms to a data set that contains text and speech, right? So if our data contains words, this becomes hugely important that we have this capability. Interestingly, all of our computers have these features already included. So if you have a Windows computer or a Mac computer or an Android or an Apple smartphone, they have voice assistants already built in. On computer systems, I'll just tell you real frankly, like when I'm running a Macintosh or a PC, the PC's got Cortana, right, as your voice assistant. A Mac computer has Siri. I'm not a fan of using either one, by the way. Nor do I like using AI tools on my operating system. I'd rather go to a browser and then use the AI tool, but it is possible on all of your devices. And I have it, um, I have it enabled on my phone. So if I hold down my home key here, Gemini, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow here in Milwaukee?
In Milwaukee, the forecast is for a high of 31 and a low of 23 and clear. Currently, it's 32 and partly cloudy.
All right. Now that came from an AI engine. It wasn't my regular voice assistant. It wasn't my Hey Google tool, right? By the way, it was Gemini, which is Google's AI engine. And I asked it a question and it answered and gave me what you couldn't see, like a bunch of stuff on the screen. So if I wanted to look at radar or other stuff, I could click through and go through to it. But the fact that we can carry that kind of technology on our phone, and real frankly, I don't even have a very good phone. Mine's a really old smartphone and it still works, right? So if you've not played with these tools, like if you've never used a voice assistant on your computer,
it sounds like you had an interesting experience using Gemini. It's fascinating how these AI engines are becoming more integrated and providing access to a...
Okay, Gemini. Thank you, Gemini. I don't need your help anymore. I don't know how that triggered, but that's the kind of thing. Now, is that listening to me? Yeah, it totally is listening to me. I've proved that in class many times. So there is the creepy factor, right? And if you're not comfortable with that, you can turn the stuff off, uninstall the apps, whatever. But I'll tell you what, when you're driving in the car and I want to look something up, I don't want to be looking at my screen. If I can just talk to my phone and say, hey, look this up and give me an answer, or like which road should I take or something like that, why not? Right? These are tools that are built to help us. But the point is, our devices have this on board. It's just a matter of usually enabling the tool. They have some examples. All right. So like these are things you might already know, but natural language processing is used in a lot of areas these days. And these are some of them. So like the voice assistants like Siri and Cortana, and not actually getting to an AI engine, just the voice assistants themselves, which are sometimes just glorified search and then text to speech conversion, are on our devices. We can have natural language processing look at a long, complex document and ask it to summarize it for us, right? That's what the AI companion's doing here inside of Zoom right now. When I'm done with the session, it'll send me an email with paragraphs of text saying what important things I talked about, right? And it'll ignore what I'm saying right now because that's unimportant. Machine translation, detecting spam, name entity recognition, hiring and recruitment. That's a big issue for a lot of our people going out into the workforce now, is you submit a resume through a job site like Indeed or Monster, and then those employers often are filtering their candidates by taking your resume or your application, putting it through an AI system and having it go qualified, not qualified, 1-0. You know what I mean? And it's choosing whether or not you go to the next step in the process based on it. And we were also talking about, like last week, with like insurance companies are trying to determine what's real fraud, what's not fraud, right? And ultimately the decision comes down to a true or false, right? And hopefully it does it accurately. AI is also used to target your advertising, right? So like, for example, if I'm always looking up things about electric guitars and then I go to Facebook and I get ads for electric guitars, it's not really a surprise, right, where that's coming from, that type of thing. Predictive typing. Are you guys ever type an email? I put like the person's like name in the to field. I go to type hi Joe or whatever, and it's already typed it in for me. I just press tab and accept it. Or Same thing happens in a coding tool. Like if you have a really good coding tool, oh my God, when I was using Visual Studio, the latest version, 2022 version, 2023 version, I forget what the version number is, and I was teaching the C# language. I hadn't used the tool in like 2 3 years, and I started typing code, and I typed one line of code, and it suggested 4 or 5 lines of code, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was going to type. And at first, I was resistant, and I was like, no, I want to type that manually to make sure it's right. And I'm like, God, why? I just press tab or enter and let it drop the code and it's the right code. Is that bad? Or if you're typing an email to somebody and it like points out the fact that you misspelled a word, or it might even automatically fix the spelling of the word without you like even trying to retype it. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. We're resistant to it because we feel like it limits our understanding and learning. But hey, everybody can mistype, everybody can misspeak. So these are very common applications. A lot of us use them on a daily basis. We don't think twice about it, and it's okay. It's not destroying the world, right? It's making the world work better and faster. At least that should be your mindset. All right, examples. Let's keep going with this. Grammarly is one of those, right? And does anybody subscribe to this here, to Grammarly? Nobody, no, not one. Okay. That's because you're an IT program and you're writing code, right? Yeah, absolutely. But if you were like an English major, okay, Elizabeth's got her hand up. All right. And that's totally okay to admit. Okay. And Elizabeth, I think I get it, right? Because this is a weird thing that happens. So okay, so when I um tell this to people, they often freak out and they're like, oh, really? Yeah, my first language is not English. How about that as a weird thing? Yeah, I didn't learn English until I was 5 years old, even though I was born here in the US, because I lived with a Greek family on a block with other Greek families. And I went to the Greek church and we went to the Greek store and I played with my Greek cousins. And I didn't need to learn English except to watch Mr. Rogers or whatever. And then when I went to school, I started to connect. Oh, this is English and this is Greek. Oh, yeah, wow. You know, and it took me a little while though to kind of figure out how to structure sentences because in Greek, it's more like Spanish or Italian or something, the way you put your sentences together, which isn't kind of like English or German or French. It's a little different, whatever. So I could see like if I was somebody that was from a different country and not sure with American grammar, because what's the hardest language on the planet to learn, folks? It's not Python, it's English, right? English is one of the hardest languages to learn. So Grammarly is a really important tool for a lot of people that don't know how to write. I had the pleasure of going to uh, a Catholic university where they hammered us on grammar. Oh my God, right? So I'm really good at English skills, but it was painful to learn, real frankly. Gmail uses a very advanced spam filter. They're really, really good at catching spam. Some stuff still does get through. But you should always check your spam because a lot of times a lot of stuff does end up there falsely, but most of the time it's pretty accurate about what's real and what's not. And also it has like stuff in there, like if you do spot a spam message, you can help it learn what's spam. Like they have a report spam button, and then they also pop up a little thing that says unsubscribe. It's like, yeah, please do it for me. I don't have to do it. Sometimes you have to do it manually, but that's one of them. But Gmail now not only has the spam filter, but it has the grammar and spell checking autocomplete stuff in there, and you can overlay Grammarly on top of your email, and you can add Gemini to it. Oh my God, it's crazy how much AI you can add to like your Google platforms now. We have Siri, right? And this, I'll put Cortana in the same thing here. And a lot of people use this both on their computers and their phones if you're an iPhone person. Um, and I think Siri was probably the first one that was probably the first impressive voice assistant, like when Apple first came out with it. But hey Siri, tell me how to blank, and it was like, wow, when that first came out. But now you can do it with any smartphone, and it doesn't have to be Siri. And a lot of phone manufacturers or phone providers have their own voice assistant that's not Google, that's not Siri, that's not whatever. But yeah, it is used pretty heavily. All right, let's move on here. All right, here's where natural language processing gets a little weird, though, right? When we're talking to each other and we know what language we're talking and we know kind of what we're talking about, um, we have this process of like somebody speaks, another person hears it, and hopefully, right? And maybe you heard this when you were a kid. You heard me, but were you listening? Right? And what's the difference between the two? Hearing is like person's just making sound, is like wah, 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 like the Charlie Brown, teacher or adult voices. But then there's actually like listening and understanding what they're actually saying. And just because you're hearing somebody doesn't mean you really understand them. It also doesn't mean that they're conveying the message clearly either, right? And once again, marital relations are a perfect example. It's like, I didn't think that's what you meant, honey, that kind of thing. And sometimes, there's nuance, right? Like you hear one thing, but you don't put the pieces together. It's very easy to misunderstand somebody, even as human beings. Oh my God, throwing language differences, uh, generational differences, cultural differences. Uh, oh my God, right? We have problems communicating as it is. So NLP has to navigate all that stuff just like a real human being does. So here's an example. It says, here's a sentence. I saw a student on a hill with a microscope. Okay, that's a pretty plain statement. I have a vision in my head. So in my head, there's a person standing on a hill and they're holding a microscope. Okay. So different interpretations though. It says there's a student on the hill and I watched him with my microscope. Unlikely, right? That's not where my head goes. There's a student on the hill and he has a microscope. That's where my head went. Or I'm on a hill and I saw a student using my microscope. Or I'm on a hill and I saw a student who has a microscope. Or there's a student on a hill and I saw something with my microscope. Like who knows? You could interpret it a lot of different ways. I don't know if this is a really great example, but the point is that you can take a seemingly simple sentence and misinterpret it a lot of different ways. How do you teach software, basically, how to make those distinctions? All right. Here's another weird sentence, and this has got a double meaning word in it. Can you help me with the can? Right? See the challenge there, right? So can, the one at the beginning of the sentence implies you're asking a question, like can you, or whatever. So we use that to start a question. The second one is a tangible object, like a soda can or a spray paint can or a can of paint or something like that, which is a container. It's a physical object. It's the same words. They're spelled the same way, depending on how or where you use them in a sentence. How do you differentiate which is which? Or like if you're learning English, you got like the two, and two problem, right? Or I mean, I could go on, right? There's so many challenges like that uh, in English, right? And it's all context based. Um, right. So it says from the two examples, we observe that language processing is not deterministic, right? So that's a kind of an important word, that the same language may not have the same interpretations, and something suitable to one person might not be suitable to the other. So just because you're using a certain way of saying something to one person, you say that to somebody else and they don't get it because they don't have the same frame of knowing. Therefore, NLP has a non-deterministic approach, right? So this is kind of interesting. So in simple words, we can use NLP to create new intelligent or AI system that can understand in the same way as that of humans and interpret language in different situations the way that humans do. Humans adapt, right? Their understanding depending on the environment they're in. Now, when you get to the NLP course, which is the one that comes after machine learning, by the way, we start to break this stuff down. And you'll see that NLP has two main branches. One is natural language understanding, and the other part is generating natural language. Right. So one is to understand what is being written or spoken. The other one is to generate language in a way that makes sense to somebody that might interpret it, right? And you'll see like the sub branches that go with that. But NLU and NLG are sub branches of NLP. Talk about generative AI, and this is where it gets interesting, folks, right? Because we have what we call these hugging face transformers, and that is a technology, by the way. It's an open source library that works with many AI engines. So a lot of AI engines have some of the same libraries underneath driving them, right? Which is why they have similar types of output. So like, for example, I know that Copilot by Microsoft basically uses the core libraries that are present in ChatGPT. They use the same technology. And it's true of many of our AI engines. It has, these libraries have pre-trained models, right, that can generate human-like text. For example, like generating a text, language translation, so going one language to another, and summarization of content like the AI engine is doing to my voice right now in this session. And that library allows for fine-tuning things, or you can use models that are already trained and not do anything to them, and they just work, right? And that's pretty powerful. And what's fun about that, and here's some code examples, by the way. I did try running these earlier, and I ran into issues, by the way, with my version of Anaconda. You guys were witnessing that last week. So when the semester's done, I'm going to completely blow it away and reinstall it. Now is not the time to do it. But you'll notice that you can import transformers, which is the Hugging Face Transformers library, import a particular tool called Pipeline, and then you could put in, for example, it's not a prompt, right? It's like the start of a phrase, and then it will return information. So this is like super simple Python code. This is the point. If you have the transformers library added to your Python distribution, I can just drop in a couple lines of code and I can add AI capabilities to my programs just like that, right? And here, like when I did my training, for example, the guy demonstrated this particular thing. And I wish I could do the same for you here today, but this is something, if you're motivated enough, you can do on your own. But generally, what it outputted was what you see at the bottom of the screen here. So, demonstration is kind of pointless. And notice that it's outputting it in what format? Notice the curly brackets. Notice the colon. It's a key value pair, right? We were talking about that. That's a Python dictionary, basically. And so it's generating, right? In this course, we'll teach you how to apply this technique in real time, right? And it does some of these processes automatically. Another thing that you can do is you can use it for translation. So for example, if you can identify, what language you're going from into, and in this case, you're going from French to English, you can kind of see it in the acronym. We can drop in French words and it'll output it in English. And that's all in the same library. Like, this is kind of a wow, right? So you can imagine you could write an application and you wrote it in English, but you could have it translate to French or pick a language. I mean, and then reverse the process going the other direction. It's all in the library. It's all pre-built. You don't have to code it. You don't have to design it. It's an API. You just utilize it. Fascinating, right? I think so. So normally, like I said, I would take the time to do this, but this isn't part of our project. But it does not take much to do this. And notice how simple the code is if you want to run a summarization thing. Now, how you're feeding the text into the summarizer, that's a whole different story. But if you can get the text captured and feed it into your application, there's already a tool built in to the Transformers library called the summarizer, which will take a large body of text and convert it into something more streamlined that basically tells you what the key points are. Isn't that what my AI is doing in Zoom right now? It is, right? And it's, folks, it's free for the taking. You don't have to pay anything for this. So if you want to like start building your own AI apps, I mean, all you have to do is study up, read on these libraries and try it. And they're giving you code right here. You can play with it. Now, what they're not telling you is like if you want to feed in a text file, well, you got to convert the text file, you got to feed it into your program, read the file, put it in a variable, and then you can run it and process it. But it's doable. And if there's ones that can do summaries like this or translations or whatever, then there's also libraries that can take input from a microphone, convert it to text, etc. Yeah, it's all doable, right? And it's just a matter of getting the right libraries installed. Now, what's kind of fun is like we talk a lot about Chat GPT, right? That was the one that first made the big waves in the Gen AI revolution, and Chat GPT is now up to version 4 something. I know I have at least one person here in the session that subscribes to it, on that level and gets the Chat GPT 4 engine. This points out that the company called OpenAI, which created that product, the Chat GPT 3 stuff, the libraries from that are open source, folks. They have them out there. And you can go to ChatGPT and interact with those models. That's what the free version does. If you pay, then you get the version 4, which is better. But even the version 3 is highly impressive, and that's mostly the one that I've been using. And yeah, it gives you content in real time. And you guys have seen me use AI here, so I don't really need to demonstrate that. Google also has a tool, T5, for generative tasks such as translation, summarization, question answering. So these are just examples of different tools. And you can read some of its capabilities there. But what's fascinating is we have the capability to leverage some of these types of tools in a no code fashion where we don't even have to write Python code to take advantage of some of the capabilities. So here's how we're going to proceed here. We're coming up to the top of the hour, so we're going to take a break real soon before we do the actual tasks here. But we're going to look at this product first. And basically, the product we're looking at is a tool called ChatFuel. It is a no-code tool that operates through a web browser. It allows us to do no-code development of chatbots. And notice the target audience is sales and marketing, pretty much. It allows for chatbots that operate autonomously if they're properly trained, or to also interact with real life people if you wish. And notice that the second bullet, it's primarily developed for the Facebook Messenger interface, but can also be used on websites. It can also be used on other Facebook platforms like Instagram, for example, or as a standalone chatbot. So you can deploy it locally, basically, and have it answer questions. I think predominantly people use it on websites, Instagram, and Facebook. And so that's the capacity in which we're going to use it. What does it do? It answers questions. It recommends products. It qualifies leads. It automates certain tasks, and it does a bunch of other stuff too. And when you get into the product, you'll see how powerful it is without really knowing how to do very much with it in the first place. It's got a pretty clear-cut user interface, although when you watch the video I created earlier today, I was stumbling all over the place with it, which is fine. I did eventually figure it all out. But basically, you have what they call flows, right, which are like For example, you develop like a list, and this is what we're going to do, a list of frequently asked questions, and then we're going to have answers for those questions. And so like you might have like, 3, 4, 5, 10 questions, whatever it is, and those will lead to solutions, and they're all linked together. So there's a little bit of that drag and drop kind of stuff going on. And what's kind of neat here, and I did manage to deploy it on a Facebook page for a business I used to run years ago, and it worked, and I was pretty darn impressed. And to the fact that I could build it and deploy it and then have it work in a real environment, I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And I could see a lot of applications for it. It has a free version, which is what we're going to try, right? And you can see it's in we're going to use the free trial. But it also has priced tier level. So in other words, if I try to use this professionally, I mean, basically I'm going to have to pay for it. But I could totally see, like, if I wanted a chat bot on a website or inside a Facebook page or something like that, why you would use this. This is like beautifully simple and powerful at the same time. And then you can also go through these other platforms like Zapier, that allows you to basically link your chat bot to like email and oh my God, all sorts of stuff, other apps basically. All right, so some things that we have to talk about before we get into the mode here is, the first question: what is a bot user? That's basically anybody who uses the chat bot, whether it's a guest or the user. And this is among bot users, there are two types: reachable and blocked, right? So some you can reach and some you can't. A bot subscriber, those are reachable users called bot subscribers. They're also called that because they can be re-engaged even after a 24-hour window. So like you could walk away from a chat bot and you go back to a website and it picks up your conversation again. That's the point of that one. When you work with this tool, because it's a no-code tool, you basically have all these different cards or widgets or whatever you pull onto the screen. And those all have controls inside of them, and you'll see like you can add some and delete and add buttons and content. And then through right clicks and submenus, you can tie these cards into all sorts of crazy stuff, including other apps, other AI engines, by the way. So I can like feed like Chat GPT into the chatbot, crazy stuff, right? And you'll see that as you're working with it, but basically you start with empty cards and you build up the content. The connecting of pieces, we call those flows, at least inside this product. And then the point is like if you have a chat and it says, "Would you like to be notified when this item is back in stock?" You'd say yes, and then they have an automated response. And then, of course, when the inventory system triggers and says, "Hey, you have one," it'll reach out to the person. Like, how cool is that? That's pretty cool, right? And from a business standpoint, that's the kind of interactivity you want for your customers. You want to engage your customers and you want to keep them. And that's one way you do it, right? Is by sending out communications when it's pertinent. And the beauty is that you can do it automatically. You don't have to have a person sitting there monitoring that. Yeah, okay, so it says quick replies serve the save function as buttons. Just another way to kind of have go through a conversation. All right, so that's kind of the grand overview of Chat Fuel. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to play with this tool. All right, so I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll see you guys in 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to pick up and kind of go into this activity now. And basically the tasks that we're going to do in this first activity, by the way, I've already pre-recorded them as a separate video that just does this task. So if you need to review it, you can look at that. I'm not sure how successful I'll be at doing this task again here during the session, because I've already gone through some of the steps, like the sign up steps, which is one of the reasons why I recorded that video. I wanted to capture those pieces, you know. So you'll have both this as an example and that other video, which is posted separately. Okay, so so the other tasks we're going to have are basically, we're going to connect up to a Facebook page. We're going to create flows inside of Chat Fuel, and then activate an entry point. Oh, I see a typo there. That should be point, not pint. And make the bot live. Now, I didn't type up these slides, so don't get me for that. That's Intel Corporation failing on that one. All right, so let's go to the first task, and we're going to go to Chat Fuel and sign in. And you'll notice that they do have a link here, dashboard.chatfuel.com. So I'm going to go to my browser, and I don't know if I have one open on my main screen here. I do not. So I'm going to create a new tab and pull it on over. Here we are. All right. So I'm going to go to dashboard.chatfuel.com. So here it comes up on my screen. Now you can see, and this is what I was, you know, I'm not gonna say fearing, but what I anticipated, right, is that it would recognize me and just drop me back in, and that whole process. So let me just very quickly go through the PowerPoints here and go through the login process. So this might not be so smooth for you guys watching it right now, but once again, I have pre-recorded me actually completing these steps in a separate video, which you can watch. And so they take you to this screen, and they do want you to sign up, and they recommend that you log in with a Facebook account. So the first thing I'm going to say right up front, and I think I said this in the other video, is I know that not everybody is a Facebook person, and I get it, right? So if you know that's an issue for you, you can sign up without Facebook. But the point is, if you're going to connect this up to a Facebook page, then logging in with Facebook kind of eliminates a couple steps in the process, because it logs you right into your Facebook account and any pages you might manage. Now, the other thing I will say about Facebook is, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that Facebook basically has two operating modes. The one mode is the normal one that most of us use, which is our profile. So when we create an account, it's attached to a human, you know, like myself, right? So, and I have a profile, and a profile can have friends, can post things, can send messages, can follow stuff, can like things, you know, all that kind of stuff. A page, on the other hand, is not attached to an individual. It's like a web page, right? Usually pages are created by people on behalf of organizations. So for example, when I was running my old business, Facebook was just starting to catch on back then. I created a Facebook page for it. And, you know, the point was, you know, kind of like, hey, we have a regular web page and we have a Facebook page, and it's just another way to get customers in. But a page is different than a profile in that a page can only, it can't have friends, for example. So you can't like add a Facebook page as your friend, but you can follow the page. So if they post something to the page, you get the information. So pages are usually put together by groups or businesses or nonprofits or organizations, basically. All right, so that's task one. All right. When you get in there, you will go through a questionnaire, right? And they're going to ask you some stuff about your business, because it's assumed that if you're building a page and you're going to run a chat bot, that you're doing it organizationally. Now, what I did in the video when I was recording this, by the way, it says, "What's your role?" And I basically put educator, right? And what's your industry, and you know, education. And then it said, what platform do you want to respond to your customers on? And because the demonstration is built around Facebook pages, I chose a Facebook page, right? if you were working on a website, let's say like you have a WordPress website or just a regular static website or something, you could choose that. Or if you're not a Facebook person and you do Instagram, you could set it up for Instagram instead. And there's other options too, but those are kind of the key ones. So once you have that stuff filled out, go ahead and click next step. And then you'll be asked to connect to Facebook page. Now, mind you, if you signed up and signed in using your Facebook account, this click will be pretty automatic, right? And you'll get a listing that comes up. And so, for example, it'll attach to your profile. And if your profile already has pages listed because you're part of a group or an organization, or maybe you help your church, or I don't, whatever your deal is, right? And they have a page and you have a page listed here, you can just select it. And so when I went into this interface, what happened for me is I had two of the musical groups I used to play with have pages, and my business had a page. And so it was pretty easy. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do the music groups. I'll just do the old business because, it's not operating anymore. Perfect. Right. The page is still out there. So I just clicked my business and I clicked connect. Now, if you don't have a page, you can just create one just to try it. So that you can use this button down here and add a page. Notice how they treat it like a business, because they're assuming whoever's creating a page is an organization of some sort, and you need a page to promote it, right? No harm done, because you can destroy this later. So you can just do a test page, if you wish. Call it whatever you want, come up with a pretend name. That's on you, right? But go ahead and create one. If you happen to be attaching to Instagram separately, I'm not really sure how Instagram handles those things, so follow the instructions that are on your screen. If you get stuck, remember, reach out to me and I can try to help you with it. All right. After you get connected up, right, and this is where I'm at. So when I get here, I go right to the screen on the left. I'm all connected up. Notice that you do have basically these capabilities here. Like if you're connected to a page, it lists it, and then you can update the permissions. So this allows this tool to interact with your page. Or if you're done playing with this tool and you don't want this tool touching your page or account, you can hit disconnect and it will remove the connection, right? And so if you're paranoid about your personal information, yada, 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 I might recommend that. Right? So when you're done with the example. If you also want to connect up to your Instagram account, and that's the thing that you do, there is a thing there for it. Okay. I'm just going to flip really quick back over to my browser so you guys can see. Here's the interface on my screen, right? And you can see that I have the connection to Facebook, right? I don't have a comments auto reply or an advertising link, but notice that the chatbot can. So in other words, somebody puts a comment on one of your posts, you can have your chatbot auto reply to the comment. Pretty crazy stuff, right? Yeah, pretty cool. Right, so if you're a lazy poster, there you go. Or if you want to push an ad out, you can also do that. We're just doing the Facebook page link for now. You can see that I did create my first bot, and we will take a look at that in a little bit. I am in trial mode, and I've had one conversation, so I get 50 conversations for free with the trial version, and that one subscriber is me. By the way, it was me interacting with my own chatbot. I connected it up to this page here, and I don't know if I click on this, if it takes you. All right, so it wants to log me in, so I'm going to log in. But this here is the page that I connected to. So this is a very old page. This is a business I used to run up in West Allis. We shut it down in 2012, 2013, something like that. And we switched to virtual sales for a while, and then we completely shut it down altogether. So that was kind of like my previous life, one of my previous things. And you can see here on August 3rd, 2013, that was our last day of operation. So that's when we closed down the shop. Okay, but there is, and this is where this is kind of weird, right? I'm logged in under that account right now through my profile. And so I can't interact with my chat bot from this screen. I'll show you how to do that later. But the point is that you have this dashboard here where you can kind of interact. And then if I'm done doing this, by the way, I just hit disconnect and then that's taken off. That's all it takes to remove it, right? Even though I have the chat bot built. All right, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint right now and keep pressing through. So that's the piece. Now, for the stuff that we're about to do here, we want to do some automation. And so I want you to click on the automation button in the left sidebar. And now we're going to start creating flows. So I'm going to see how much of this I can do right now. So I'm going to click on automation. And you notice it takes me into a flow that I've already created. And so you're not seeing the same screens that I'm seeing. So I'm going to use the PowerPoint to help guide us. They want you to use templates, right? So you'll get a little screen of some sort. If I remember right, it didn't look like this when it came up on my screen. And I don't know where it's at. So if we really get stuck and it's way different, I'll have somebody else share their screen and we'll record that into the video. But remember, I have a separate video where I show the correct stuff to click on. And then ultimately what we want to do is we want to create a blank flow. So wherever that comes up on your screen, and I'll just give you guys a second to find that. And I don't know if that's something I can add at this point. I can just create a blank flow. Apparently not. Okay, so I have this one. You can see it's active and all that stuff. Right. So go ahead and create a blank flow. All right. And then I know the menu did not appear like this for me. In fact, I found this entry on the second row on mine. Oops, sorry about that. So you're going to choose an entry point, and for the entry point, this is assuming you have Facebook and have a Facebook page. You have to have both, by the way. You would click on that, and then that will connect up to your Facebook page. And notice here, by clicking on the button, your Facebook page, the user will be taken to to Messenger. So in other words, this allows them to interact with your chat bot through Facebook's chat messaging tool called Messenger. That's the point. As you kind of look through the interface, though, when you're making the selection, I want you to notice some of the other things that are listed here that you can use, including Facebook shops and sponsored messages and auto replies and all that stuff. All right. So ultimately, you'll get this tile on the screen, and that's kind of what I have here. That's this tile. And what I did with mine is it like popped in the middle, is I pulled it over to the left, left side of the screen, because I knew the flows would be from left to right. So I moved it over to the left. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to start building an FAQ, right? And you'll notice in that box when it comes up, it says add FAQ or frequently asked questions option. And then you can have a bunch of predetermined questions like, when are you open? Or do you carry, Greek olives or something goofy like that? And then you can have preset answers for those questions. Right? So you want to have both a Facebook page, thing, and then you also want to have a flow. And then, like I said, put your Facebook page thing on the left, put your flow thing on the right. And then after you create objects inside there, you can link them to the flow. And so here's an example of them arranging them. So Facebook on the left, flow on the right. So they're going to ask you to make a selection here, and we're going to add a FAQ option. And then when you do that, the little text box comes up. And I think that part I can demonstrate. So for example, if I want to add a question here, I'm not sure how to, oh, there we go. I just click inside the box and I'm going to add a question. Let's see. Did you create candles for Greek weddings? That's going to be the FAQ question, because that's one of the things that we did in that business. And then what I want is I want it to go to a new flow, right? Well, I don't want to connect it up to this, but I have a blank one over here. You notice I left that there. And we can basically, in principle, and I'm zooming in here, I did not want to do that. You could add a flow by basically just dragging one out here, right? That's the one way to do it. I did have one already pre-created, and you see it's kind of messy the way I have it. And then I can have a pre-built response that I drop in here, and I'm just going to say, yes, we used to create custom decorated candles for many Greek Orthodox ceremonies, including weddings, baptisms, Easter, etc. Stuff like that. But so in other words, if this question will be pre-populated in Messenger, and all people have to do is click it, and then after a few seconds, that answer would come up on the screen. And notice there's all these other little tools I can do here. Is I can collect emails, for example, and I just want to show you like some of the things that are possible here. So I can, enter it through a bunch of different mechanisms. Right now, we're coming in through a Facebook page. That's the entry point. Then we can add AI tools to it, including text and buttons. That's what I'm using right now. It's just text coming back to the screen. I can simulate typing so that it seems like a person is typing the response instead of it just coming up on the screen, or I can send back images, video, etc. I can also ask them for information and capture that information. I can get them to opt into notifications. I can get them to do all these other tasks here. And then notice some of the things I can integrate with. And you remember they were talking about Zapier as a tool, but I can also connect it to other app platforms, including calendars. Zapier is a whole app platform. I can send information to Google Sheets so we can chronicle it. And I can tie in Chat GPT. So I could have Chat GPT responding to this as well if I have an API key for it. So crazy, crazy powerful, you guys. But these are the flows. Okay, so they're going through the examples here. So they have you click on the box, add some questions, right? So these are the pre-built questions that would appear in Messenger when people click message on your page. Then you take each individual question and you connect it to a flow box. And then you start choosing what kind of flow box it is. So the ones that I use basically were text and buttons, but it could be anything, right? Depending on like what you're building and from a practical sense. And so you would add an answer for the first question here, assuming we're just doing an FAQ where it's a pre-built question with a pre-built answer, right? To save people the hassle of responding to it, really, right? Like, when are you open? Right? The other thing that you can do is you can have it open a URL or call a phone or schedule an event on a calendar. It's pretty crazy. So like not only can it put up an event on or text on the screen, but it can also drive you to the next step. Do you want them? You want to ask them for the email? Hey, you want to sign up for a mailing list? Let's get that customer. It's kind of the mindset here. And I did add a URL on mine. So if you look here, I'm having it go to a website. And this website, I just wanted to try it. And this website is a personal website. It's not a business one. But if I had the business, I would have them go to the business website because that's where I would make my money, right? I want to go to the website, drop in their credit card and give me money, make me rich, whatever. All right. So this will take a little bit of time, so and I realize most of you should be watching at this point and maybe not doing, but if you can handle trying to do it while we're going through it, I'm just kind of putting it out there. They do kind of give you a step-by-step here, but I think my other video is probably a little more helpful in the process of this, where I'm actually making maneuvers, even fumbling with it a little bit until I get it right. But I did get it, and I did get it to work. All right, so add button name, all this stuff kind of goes pretty easily. They put in text and buttons. Then they answer a second question, right? And you see the kind of answers that they're putting in. You can see that I was mimicking this, right? So I got text and a link, and then I have just an answer to a question. And you can go on and on. So if you have like 20 questions that people always ask, why not automate that process? Right? Totally makes sense. And then you notice like this one has like a phone number dropped in as well. All right. Once you complete all the architecture, then you go to the diagram and you can just click the activate entry point, right? It'll turn blue, meaning it's active. It's connecting up to Facebook. The FAQ questions are in your messenger interface as soon as the customer clicks into it. And then you can go try it. Now, if you ever want to update the permissions, so in other words, you change the model, right, the chatbot model, you can update the permissions. I don't know if that's even necessary, honestly, but who knows? And then if you want to disconnect it at some point, you can do that. If you have an Instagram, you can connect it up to there, and you bring the magic over to that platform too. Now let's see it in action. Now this is where it gets a little bit weird. And once again, I'm real frankly, whenever I go into Facebook and I'm on in a class session, I'm really careful about what I'm clicking on, frankly. And right now I'm in that account, so I'm behaving as though I'm the owner of this page. So I don't have a message icon like they show in the PowerPoint. In order to see that, I have to switch profiles. So I'm going to switch to my regular profile, and I apologize for anything that pops up on screen here because it's not under my control. And then I'm going to go to that page. So I'm going to just find my page through the search, and it's taking me there. And there's the message tool. And I'm going to click on the message tool. And then I want you to notice now I've had interaction with this already. So this is not really a good example. In fact, here, let me try it like this. Let me go into my other profile. All right. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to that same page. Okay, so here's the problem with this one. This one's also a page, so it's not a profile. So if I'm going from a page to a page, I can't see it. So I guess I have to be on my personal profile. But if you hit basically the Grecian imports thing here and get the message, what it will do is it will populate when you first land in here, and I can't simulate that because I've already hit it once. It will list all your FAQ questions, and all somebody has to do is click on it, and then it provides the response. And notice the website link. And I don't know how to get back to the original list of questions. I can't do that. The thinking is that once you're in there, the key questions that they're going to ask are going to be up at the top. People are going to click on them and get the answer that they want. And then if you're clever about it, right, think about this, you can orchestrate it kind of in a series. It doesn't necessarily have to go all from one origin point. But I'm going to go ahead and sign out of Facebook now, or the close the tabs at least. But as these questions are asked through that interface, these three questions, if I had never hit it before, would be up in that box as little buttons. Basically, I can just click on when I get into the FAQ. So I don't have to type it in. You just click it. It gives you the answer that's attached, and you're all done. I think that's pretty slick and pretty easy to do, generally speaking. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like if you've never hit it before. So this is what I'm talking about. So here's like three pre-built things. And then when you click on that, it simulates that it's typing, does the dot, dot, dot thing. And then a few seconds later, the answer pops up. Like, oh, wow, I'm talking with somebody. How great is this business that they're interacting with me at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? But little do you know, it's a chat bot, right? But that's kind of the grand point of it. It shows examples of the communications. If you go into their full-blown messenger product where you get the whole interface for the Meta suite, you can see the interaction in like a more traditional interface. And this tool also conglomerates both Facebook and Instagram communications into one interface. Right. If you guys are curious, all of this stuff is logged. It tracks. You can get statistics from it, and it's a very useful tool. So I could see, like, if a business wants to provide this kind of functionality, this is a great tool. And it doesn't seem like it costs too much money, by the way. All right, on to kind of the last piece of class here tonight, talking about flowcharts. And one thing that you'll notice from working in Chat Fuel is this, basically this flow that happens from activity to activity. And then, of course, you can take these sub pieces and then go deeper, right? So it's like you can have a follow-up question or a follow-up answer in the interactivity that flows through the whole process. So we did a very simple one here. But one of the things that they talk about is the fact that this is true in regular programming. So anybody who took the Python class and got the whole flowchart spiel at the beginning of that class knows that whenever you lay out IT tasks, it's really helpful to write down an algorithm or to have basically a plan of how the information is going to flow through what you're doing. The point of a flowchart typically is to show the steps and the options and what happens when you follow any pathway through either an app or a program or whatever you're writing. It's always sequential, right? Usually we go top to bottom and or left to right, right? And I say and or depends on like the nature of your data. And it's thought about as they call it here a process flow diagram. And why they do flow charts in the first place is because sometimes it's easier to look at a picture than it is to look at words written on a page and understand what's happening. And we do have this little video here. I'm going to play this video, at least a part of it. And if you really want to be schooled on this, you can watch this whole thing. This is intended for people doing Project Lead the Way, which is basically high school students, by the way. But they do talk about some of the major flowchart shapes and stuff and the procedures. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this, by the way, and I'm going to speed up the playback and turn on closed captioning. If you guys want to review how to really do flowcharts, you could go back to the Python class and look at Unit X, if you guys remember that, which is where we talked about it. My videos from that are still out on my YouTube channel, so you can find it. Let's go ahead and play this to get a little bit of this content here.
Welcome to this presentation on creating flowcharts. When you're trying to code a program, especially a really complicated program, it's really helpful to be able to organize your thoughts, organize the process, organize the pattern of how you're going to get the outcome that you want. And flowcharts are an amazing tool for making that happen. So, what is a flowchart? Well, it's a schematic. It's a diagram that uses special symbols in place of the actual pictures. In a wiring schematic, for example, a squiggly line is used to represent a resistor, and many of my students are already familiar with that. An algorithm is a series of steps that tell how to complete a task. For example, an algorithm for reducing a mathematical expression could be first perform the operations contained within the parentheses, then calculate the exponent if there is one, next multiply and divide from left to right. Finally, add and subtract from left to right. That is an example of an algorithm for a process that you're already familiar with. Here we have a very simple flowchart that might show the steps in feeding a dog. As we look at the parts of a flowchart, note that the different processes have different shapes. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about those different shapes and what they symbolize, what we use them for. So, start end. The design process is an iterative process. Iteration is the act of repeating a process either to generate an unbounded sequence of outcomes or with the aim of approaching a desired goal, target, or result. Your flowcharts may repeat steps or they may backtrack several steps. We always begin them with the rounded rectangle that represents start. The rectangle is used for the process step. Process is basically the verb. What are we doing? All right. What kind of things are we doing? Like feeding the dog in that previous example. Adding one, turn the motor on, turn the light off, so forth. Input and output. So many times in a program, the user needs to input some data or some values, or the program is going to output information to the user or to another computer. So for this, we use a parallelogram. It indicates that a manual operation is needed, and some examples are given there. Next, we have decision. This shape is a rhombus. From geometry, you may remember that a rhombus is a quadrilateral with all four sides congruent or equal, right? It is different from a square in that the angles are not all right angles like a square. Some refer to this block as a diamond because it has been rotated about 45 degrees, whereas most rhombi lie on their bases. So here's where our decisions go. This is where we're going to be asking yes or no questions. And our program, our flowchart, is going to go off in two different directions based on the answers to those questions. And there's some examples there. Arrows. We need to keep track of the direction of the flow, right? And so arrows do that for us. Sometimes there's one arrow. In case of decisions, there may be two arrows for yes and no. Yes for one direction, no for another. All right, so let's take a look at an example. What we want is a program, a flowchart, for counting from 1 to 9, but only in odd numbers. So before attempting to draw the flowchart, what do you think the output might be? Also, what is the first block? Well, the output would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, right? Those are the odd numbers that are between 1 and 9, including 1 and 9. And the start block is always going to be the first one. So let's start with the start block. All right, very good. So there's our start block. We're off to a great start. What are we going to do next? Well, the program has to begin with the number 1. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to put a parallelogram there and input the number 1. Next step. Well, it's the process of actually saying that number, right? The computer needs to say that number for us, so we're going to put that as a process of what the computer is going to do next. To move from 1 to 3, we would add 2. This is a crucial step because it determines the pattern for the rest of the process. Next, we're going to add a decision block. Do we go on or are we done, right? We need a decision block to determine that. Are we greater than 9 or do we need to keep going? So if you can imagine this, we're starting with 1. It says the number 1. We input the number 1. The flowchart says the number 1. Then it adds 2, and we get 3. Is 3 greater than 9? No. So we go back, and it's going to say that new number, right? This is the number that is now 2 more. So it's going to say the number 3. It's going to add 2 more. Gives us 5. Is that greater than 9? No. So it's going to go back and say the number 5. It's going to add 2. Is that number greater than 9? No. Now we're at 7. So we'll go back and we say the number 7. We add 2 more and we get to 9. Excellent. Are we greater than 9? No. So it goes back and it says the number 9. And then it adds 2 more. Now we're 11. Are we greater than 9? Yes, we are greater than 9. And when you're greater than 9, then the program comes to an end. And there we go. End. So excellent. So here's an example of our flowchart. Now that you understand how a flowchart works,
All right. So I know that anybody that took the Python class, and this should be like repeat for you guys, right? Like this kind of concept here. Um, flow charting is kind of a weird aspect of programming because it's like, do we really need to do that? This seems pretty simple. I don't really need. I'll tell you what though, when your problems get more complex, this seems really silly for a problem like this because this is really kind of easy to figure out because I mean, how many steps really are there? Not many. But what if your steps are significantly more complicated and there's significantly more questions and significantly more math and a lot more user interaction and a lot more decision points, et cetera, et cetera. And you guys have written Python code, you know what I'm talking about. Programs can get pretty complex. So trying to figure out your algorithm um, just by writing down the steps verbally is sometimes not as clear as looking at a flow chart and negotiating your way all the way through it. And there's a number of different tools, by the way, that we can use to create flow charts, and I will show you those in a second. But somewhere here in my archives, and I'm going to try to find this if I can do this efficiently, is we've been teaching a lot of these concepts for quite a while here at Gateway. And I'm trying to remember where I have this. So like, for example, I did this thing with my students where I would have them code the game rock, paper, scissors, right? And we would do that in the Java class. We would do that. I don't think I do it in the Python class, but we would do that in the C# class. And before they could code it, I would have them write an algorithm for it, right? And then do a flow chart for it, because once you write that, then your code is really easy to write. That's really kind of the whole point. And if you're going to go into a no code tool and you have your flow chart worked out, well, guess what? Your no code tool is going to be a lot easier to write too, because you already have all the steps determined. And I'm not sure which, I think this is the whole flow chart. So if I take the game rock, paper, scissors, I know this is impossible to see, but here's the algorithm for rock, paper, scissors, right? Now, mind you, right? If I was a 5-year-old child, I could explain this to my friend in like 30 seconds and go like this, or like this. We go like this. And then if you do this and I do that, this is what happens. But okay, what if you really try to break down the steps, right? So you pick something and the computer picks something. And what happens if you have a match, or like you both do rock? Well, then you do it again, right? Or if you have one pick and the computer has a different pick, all the different pathways that happen. And I'm showing you, like, it's actually a lot more complex than you think, because there's a bunch of different permutations of, like, okay, you did rock, I did scissors, you did scissors, I did rock, I did paper, you did whatever. And then all of that. And then you might even get to the end and say best of three, that type of thing. And all of those are decision points. So rock, paper, scissors, this is a possible flow chart for it. Like, wow, right? And so why is that important to coding and no code tools? Well, if I was trying to build this with code or no code, having this all figured out in advance significantly speeds up the process. And so, not that you have to do this to create software, but really complex pieces of software really kind of require it, right? And the more complex your chatbots get, the same. Now, here's kind of the grand takeaway of this. It's like, all right, so you're creating a flow chart. Like, what tools do I use to do it? Now, believe it or not, you can do this with word processors. I am going to demonstrate with Microsoft Word because I still consider that kind of like the standard, but you can just go into a document, right? And I'm sorry, Python people, you've seen this before. You can go to the draw menu, and actually, I think it's insert that go to. And what you want to insert is shapes. And if you click the shapes panel here, you'll notice all the different shapes, and they have all the flowchart shapes right here. And once again, if you need a diamond or an oval or a square or a rhombus or whatever, all that stuff that he was talking about. You just, pick the shape that you want. You draw it on the screen and you can type into it, right? So this, I'm just showing you that it can be done. The other thing is often when you create these shapes, you want to basically draw arrows in between them. Those are available here too. And this is how you build a flowchart. This is one way. These same tools appear inside of PowerPoint, so you could do it inside of a PowerPoint slide if you prefer. If you would rather use the Google App Suite, so I'm trying to see if I can get to my Google account here through school, and you can go to Google Drive, and you could create a new document and then insert a drawing, but you can actually go right to their drawing tool, and their drawing tool, you will notice, has all the same shapes available, right? So you can come in here and I'll see if I can find like a diamond, right? And I can also type in there, and I can add arrows pretty easily, and then you can export this as an image. So these are just ways that you can very quickly and easily create flowcharts. Now, why do I bring this up, right? Well, there's a reason. One of our assignments is to take whatever you created in Chat Fuel and then create a flowchart that matches it. That's kind of the assignment. So that's why I'm showing it. And no, I don't want to play the video again. And what I would have you try, like they want you to go into groups and stuff. If you want to see an example flowchart, they have one linked up here. So could you draw a flowchart by hand? Yeah, you can draw it by hand if you wish to take a picture of it, if that's easier for you. I would implore you to try some software tools, but this is just an example that comes from the author of our slides. And if you want to try a different tool, they point out a different one here. There's a website called Draw.io. And I thought the link would work, but it didn't. But that's actually kind of a neat website also, if you guys have never tried it. It's not the only one out there, by the way, but it is one that people do use for doing that. And you can see it loads up and it shows like where are you saving it to. I'm going to save it to my device, create a new diagram, and they have tools that generate them for you. But you want a flow chart, I just go with whatever name it comes up with, and you have one already started, right? So I'm just showing you how easy it is to create one. It's not a big deal, right? Is this helpful? I think it's helpful, especially when your application design or your process flows become more and more complex. Now, granted, with Chat Fuel, you're going to build something and then you're just going to mimic it as a flow chart. So if you look at how I have this listed in Brightspace, and I'm going to get us there in just a moment. And this is unit 15. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 14. Wrong unit. That's this assignment. So you're going to do the Chat Fuel thing. And then when you're done, you're going to create a flow chart. I have the sample flow chart that I just showed you, and that video also that we just watched is linked up here too, so you can use those to help you in the process of it. It really shouldn't be a big deal, because if you create a Chat Fuel thing that's this simple, what does that look like? Well, basically, people are going to ask one of three questions, and they're going to have one of three outcomes. This one takes you to a website. This just puts text on the screen, and this one collects emails. So pretty easy. And I could think of this as like somebody starts, they go to the page, maybe that's a step. They select the FAQ question, and then this FAQ question puts text on the screen, takes you to a website. That one just gives you text. This one takes you to a website and collects your email. Right? pretty easy flow charts. It looks like three branches that you would form with it. And not that you would do the process in that order. Normally, like if you were going to design a chatbot, you'd want to kind of design what you're going to build first and then do it in chat fuel, but we're kind of doing it backwards. I do have a question. Martin, your question?
Yeah. Sorry, if one doesn't have a Facebook account, where can we connect this tool to? What are the other options?
Well, the other options would be if you have an Instagram account, and I assume if you don't have Facebook, you probably don't have Instagram. The other option is you could propagate it to a regular website. That's a possibility. And I think you can also and I'm trying to figure out here how to add a new. Yeah, we don't want to add a new block. We want to do a new bot, and I want you to notice, um, I think the choice would be website, but of course, if you don't have a website to add it to, once again, you have a problem. So, what you could do, and I'm just throwing it out there, is if you don't have a Facebook page, you could build everything and then just not activate it. If you can't even get to this step, what I would suggest is you contact me, and then I will give you an alternate task to do. What I would recommend is you could just do the chapter 16 work instead to make up for the points.
Okay. Okay.
I don't want you going to sign up for a Facebook account if you really don't want one, but that would be the other option, right? And there are plenty of people that don't have Facebook, right? And people that do tend to be slightly older in demographic, and then the Instagram crowd tends to be a little bit younger. So Facebook or Instagram bots, WhatsApp bot, or a website. I haven't tried a website thing, so I'm just going to go ahead. Gosh, okay, it says I can use the same account, so I'm gonna do that. I'm testing it here for you, Martin, right now. I think I clicked that, so I'm waiting for it to respond right now. It's very slow to respond, but I'm curious. What does it do with a website? I'm not really sure. Kathleen, I see you have your hand up also.
Yep, I have a similar question to Martin's question. As in lieu of doing this particular exercise, then you're saying we should do chapter 16's exercise or assignment?
Right. The chapter 16 work, like if you can't complete these because you don't want to, or can't, right?
Can't. Yeah.
Yeah, chapter 16 becomes replacement points for it. So you can complete that work instead.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. You previously, would you like to continue? Yeah, I said continue, but whatever the deal is here, it's not pushing me forward. So I'm not really sure what the deal is with it right now. Maybe it only allows me to do one bot at a time. I'm not really sure. Jared, hand up.
It looks like it can also connect with Google if you don't have Facebook, but I don't entirely know what that would encompass.
Yeah, and you can see what it's doing to me right now. Okay, well, it looks like it's actually working. So hey, why don't I try this again? Yeah, none of these are me, I guess. I guess I'll go with that. And I really don't like, the answers I'm given here. What's your industry? I'm just going to say other. Right. This is what's kind of interesting here, though. And you see, I'm following a different pathway in right now. It's still attached to my Facebook account, but I'm curious, what can I do with a web widget? So let's see. All right. And I'm going to skip the phone number piece for a bunch of different reasons. All right. I'm pretty curious here. All right, this is getting a little creepy, honestly. So now it just feels like I'm interacting with a regular AI, but it's going to build me a tool by me following through this process. And how about oh gosh, I don't even know what to put in here right now. I'm kind of like, normally I think about these things before I do them. I don't want to just do it live, like on a video while I'm fumbling through it. But you could experiment with this and see what it comes up with. Yes, so they want my website link. So I'm kind of like a little bit reluctant to do that here live on the screen. But I'll tell you what, I will follow through this process when I'm done here in class and see where it takes me. But I would encourage you guys to try it. You know, the ideal, yeah.
As far as I can go.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions, you guys? And I'm tempted to finish off the PowerPoint here, so I'm going to go back to it. All right, so these are our key takeaways, and that's basically the PowerPoint. So we did finish the whole thing. I'm going to end the recording here.